terribly funny and elegant.
Good morning, madam. Could I interest you in a bucket?
What you like.
Were there jokes told in your house, or was it stories, or was there mick-taking of other people? What kind of laughs were they?
I think there were more, anecdotes, things that had actually happened, like when Auntie Vera got her latest set of dentures and they were so uncomfortable that she took them out in the restaurant and put them under the napkin and then, of course, left the restaurant and then had to go back an hour later and go through the trash can or dustbin. This kind of stuff. Yeah. Or actually Mother, who was wonderfully naive, getting into the lift at Piccadilly Circus and going down and then getting out, think she'd arrived at the next station. Stories like that. But I don't think there was a great deal of laughter at the dinner table. But Dad sometimes said things I thought were very funny. I remember we were watching a variety show once, and there was some act on, and he just said to me very seriously, he said, "I don't think this will ever replace entertainment, do you?" And I thought that was terribly funny and elegant. I did discover when I went to school, I don't think I mixed in at all well for the first year. And then I discovered by making sly remarks, because I was never naughty in a sort of brave way that got you punished, but I would make subversive remarks and get laughs. And that made me popular. So I suspect that I had a real psychological motivation for actually wanting to be funny.
And were there any teachers that sort of nurtured any skills in you that might be useful later?
No, I don't think so. No, I really don't. It's kind of funny, isn't it?
Not something that was praised anywhere at school?
No, because the funny thing is, no teacher at any point in my school career commented, or I suspect even noticed, that I had a glimmer of creativity in me. I mean, it was completely, because the only ones who did that were the ones who wrote poems about carpets of snow and using the word verdant. You know what I mean? They were immediately spotted as
Yes.
very creative,
Yes.
you know? There are a few brilliant boys been noticed, but not for creativity, because they had great memories. I loved comedy. I watched a lot of it on the television. A lot of it was American, but particularly Tony Hancock and the Goons, which of course people followed as though they were Manchester United. You know, it was a sense of excitement, and you were part of the group that loved the Goons. And then I did get involved in sort of house entertainments. By which I mean once or twice a term, my house, which consisted of about 80 people, would put a little show on. And it was, of course, terribly amateur. But we did one or two things that were quite funny.
When, then, did the idea of comedy as a possible career occur to you?
Oh, when I was about 23. It never occurred to me. Because, you see, just after my time in the Footlights at Cambridge, everybody started thinking about show business. But before that, one or two exceptional people had done it, like Peter Cook. But no, all the people in my year, 1963, we all had jobs, or advertising or teaching. I was going to be a lawyer, I was going to be a solicitor. And then this show happened out of the blue, which was much better than we expected, because we had some talented people like Tim Brooke Taylor and Bill Oddie and David Hatch, and Humphrey Bartley produced it, who was marvelous. And suddenly there were people there in suits sort of talking about putting it in the West End, and other people, different people, in different suits, asking us whether we wanted to join the BBC, and it was sort of, what? And I thought, yeah, I think writing jokes would be much nicer than sitting in a lawyer's office. Plus, I got paid 2.5 times as much. I mean, I was in the lawyer's office, Freshfields, solicitors to the Bank of England. I was going to get £12 a week. And writing for Dick Emery and Derek Guyler, I got 30 quid a week. So I was happy, and I didn't have to wear a suit.
So it was writing, mainly writing?
Oh, yes, entirely. I was given a job as a writer-producer. Yeah.
So when was the first time that you actually performed for cash?
Oh, how interesting. I think we did one or two radio shows just after we left Cambridge. I think we used the material from the Footlights show, and I must have got a fee for that, probably £12 again. Because the funny thing is, Dawn, I mean, we did get paid so very little. You know, I mean, when I started on the Frost Report, I got 70 quid a show, you know? Yeah. And at the beginning of Monty Python, I was getting 240 quid a show. So the sums were tiny, but I think probably 1963, 2 or 3 radio shows, probably 10, 15 quid a time.
Tiny amounts, but still enough to allow you to think this could be a living.
Yes, I don't know really where it was taking me in a funny kind of way, because I thought of myself as a writer. I wasn't a performer for some time when I first joined the BBC. And it didn't bother me at all. I didn't miss it. I didn't think, oh, I wish I was performing. But I liked writing, and I liked writing jokes. I never really wanted to say anything seriously or solemnly. I always wanted to use humor, even if what I was saying had a serious undertone, you know.
Were you writing on your own then, John?
Yes, I was, which was one of the few times in my life. And then I came out to America with the Footlights. And we did the show on Broadway for 3 weeks, and the New York Times hated it. And then after that, I did a Broadway musical, which was only funny because I was, of course, only in the chorus numbers. And I sang so badly that the musical director made me mime. I was not allowed to sing, so I was sitting there half a sixpence.
Yes. Were you singing Half a Sixpence?
Yeah.
Was that the musical?
That was the musical, Tommy Steele.
Yes.
Yeah. 1965.
And when was the first TV that you were very delighted with?
Well, I sort of struggled through the Frost Report. I was very happy to be in it, but I was terrified. We used to do it live to 14 million people. I've never been so scared in my life. I remember I used to have a pee about 3 times in the hour before the show, and I can still remember at that dear old theatre on Shepherd's Bush Green, looking in the mirror one day and thinking, I don't think I could be any more frightened if I was going into a bull ring with a bull. I remember thinking I couldn't be more frightened. So I sort of struggled through that, and then I think I began to really enjoy it when Tim Brooke-Taylor, Marty Feldman, Graham and I, and Amy MacDonald started to do the 1948 show, because it was very late night. It only went out in a few regions. Nobody cared very much. There was no spotlight on it. And we were able to do some deliciously silly things. And we kind of trying things. You know what I mean? We did, I thought, it wasn't like anything else on the television.
But you were playing with ideas then, you were experimenting a little bit.
Yes. You see, when we were doing the Frost Report, we often would come up with really silly ideas, and the producer-director was a lovely man called Jimmy Gilbert, used to smile genuinely and then very tolerantly say yes, but they won't understand it in Bradford. And in the end, when we did this crazy stuff, we discovered that maybe not many people in Bradford understood it, but enough. And that was that sort of gave us the courage later on, I think, to go on being silly in that direction with Python.
And did you, in those early days, did you create a comedy persona that you thought, I'm happy with this and I think I can see a way to make this work?
I think I automatically fell into playing sort of bland middle-class people. You know what I mean? The professionals, the accountants and the lawyers and, I don't know, the architects. I think I fell into that because of the public school background. The only other thing was that I always liked humor with a bit of an edge to it. And what I discovered was, so did the audience. And people have often said, well, there's quite an edge, you know, humor or sort of anger underneath it. The answer is that's because people laugh at it. If they hadn't laughed at it, I wouldn't have gone in that direction. But I think it was W.C. Fields who once said, to make somebody laugh, all you need to do is to dress and act up as a very old woman and have her dodder along the street and then fall down a coal hole. But, he said, to make a professional comedian laugh, it really has to be an old woman. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. I think comics have got this hard edge to them, even if they don't show it very much to their audience. And I like those kind of quite edgy, sharp, hard jokes. And the producers were always saying to me, oh, I don't think we'd better say that. And I'd say, let's just say it. It's only radio. And if it doesn't get a laugh, cut it out. And it always got a laugh. So I thought, oh, that's nice. So humor that I liked anyway was very much confirmed by the audience reaction.
Do you think men are more cruel when it comes to humor?
I think men are a bit more armored when it comes to humor. I think that they I mean, I think we spend a lot of time trying to laugh at things we're scared of.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes. I think, well, I think how much laughing there is at birthdays about the fact people are getting older. What's the significance? They're closer to death. We laugh a lot about it. You say, ah, ha, 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 you know, none of us getting any younger, you know. All that stuff, I think a lot of it is a barrier to what scares us.
Do you think comedy attracts a certain type of person?
I think there are some stereotypes around, which, you know, not all comedians are depressed, but I think a very large number of them are.
Why is that? Why is that?
Well, I think they find that making people laugh makes them feel better in the short term. You know, that being around people and having them laugh, they feel much better. I think when they get back to the hotel room or back to their home, I don't think that lasts for very long, but it's probably better than just, you know, and it's a living. It's a living. There are a number of people, I think, are very straightforward and normal and funny. I'm thinking of Michael Palin or Graham Garden, people like that. And then there's a fair number of them are tortured. But I think as you get older, you realize there's more tortured people around than you thought. They're not all in the arts.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
But do you think comedians are fairly needy? Needy for the attention?
Yes, I think some performers are sadly needy. I'd love to mention some names, but I dare. But I tell you somebody who wasn't, was Ronnie Barker. I mean, Ronnie Barker was totally happy to be funny. And then he'd sit at dinner and you'd think he was the nicest bank manager you ever met. He didn't need the attention. A lot of performers need attention, yeah. And I think there are other people who, I mean, there are some performers who just love the curtain call, you know? They cannot get enough of it. They want to come out and out and out. And for me, the curtain call is very nice. It should last about 15 seconds. I want to say, glad if you enjoyed the show, that's very nice, and I'm glad you enjoyed it, thank you, and go and get something to eat, you know? But there are some people who live for that moment.
If being funny involves playing the fool, have you ever felt like a fool performing?
I think I felt very, very foolish indeed when I'm in the middle of something that isn't working. I think that's a terrible feeling. That's really awful, you know? I mean, you just want to die. And that's why comedians talk about dying. Actors don't talk about dying. You know, it's terribly simple. It's black and white. Do they laugh? Do they not laugh? If they don't laugh, you can't go on saying it's a bad audience. You can say that Monday night, and you can sort of say it and hope Tuesday night, but if they don't laugh on Wednesday night, you're not being funny, you know? Yeah. And if you're not being funny, that's really humiliating. But I think, I'm pleased to say this to you, dear Dawn, that you and Jennifer were the first two women I ever saw who I thought really let go. I thought everyone else, all the other women were just holding back a little bit. Don't mean they weren't funny, don't mean they weren't good, but when you guys went for it, and that's the moment I was terribly, I'll be really avuncular, proud of you both, because it was the first time that I thought there were two women out there who were funnier than any of the other men.
But in order to try something new, to see if it's funny, you do have to open yourself, don't you, to that possible failure. And the failure means humiliation.
Oh, absolutely. I can still remember before the first Python saying to Michael Palin just before the show, I said, you do realize we could be the first people ever to do a comedy show to complete silence? He said, I was thinking the same thing. I mean, we had no idea if they would laugh. We really thought they might.
So you've never had that dripping with humiliation moment then, have you?
Oh, I'm sure I can think of one or two. And also, there's a certain kind of criticism. And I don't know what critics do it, but when it is very savage, that you feel shame. And it's something to do with the way critics will go after you sometimes. And I don't get it. I think it's envy. I think it's envy that they don't know about.
Have you ever had any form of rituals or superstitions or anything like that before you go on stage? Have you, what kind of preparation?
Oh, just running the lines. The fear is always forgetting the lines. It's so simple. The fear is not, oddly enough, not being funny. Because, I don't know, forgetting the lines is even worse than not being funny. And for years, I had two anxiety dreams. One was taking an exam at Cambridge, and 4 days before the exams, I discover there's some subject that I have to take an exam in, and nobody told me. Yeah. 4 days to cram for it. Yeah. The other one is going on stage and not knowing my lines. Yeah. And at some point, probably in the 70s, the 40s, the dream changed, because I remember in one dream I came out and I didn't know the actors even. I never set eyes on the actors. And that's normally when you just think, please, can I die now? Not in 5 minutes, but now. And I said, good evening. A huge laugh, you see. And I thought, oh, that went down well. And then I said, how do you do? My name's John Cleese, the Hollywood. I suddenly found that I could ad-lib in my dream and get this big reaction. And I think it was very indicative that a certain kind of fear was beginning to dissipate. But if I go on stage now, I have almost no nerves at all, except vis-a-vis remembering the lines.
Okay, so you trust in your own innate funniness, then?
Something like that. I know I can get away with it. I know I can get away with it.
Yeah. When you are performing on stage, do you think you get a kind of heightened intelligence while you're actually performing?
That's interesting. I think so. I think it's something to do with the adrenaline and the energy. But I do a Q&A afterwards, which people like often better than the show, which infuriates me. This thing you spend hours honing it and polishing it and rehearsing it. They say, oh, yes, but the Q&A was really good.
Because they're meeting you, that's why.
Yes, but the point is your adrenaline is running, and I think you can think faster than almost anyone in the audience when you're on the stage. It's just the setup. It gives you some energy. See, I've always been primarily a writer. I want to get it right. I want to figure it out and just get everything polished, and that's right, and then go out and do it and play with it a little bit. Let a little bit of daylight into it. Don't stick to it too rigidly. That's what I like to do.
When was the last time you performed on stage, actually?
Well, I did a sort of trial show in a sort of a one-man show, but with one or two other people in it in New Zealand just over a year ago. And I thought that would be fun, that would be interesting. And also, you know, talking in American terms, New Zealand is about as far off Broadway as you can get.
That's for sure.
There won't be any reviews on the front page of the New York Times or indeed the London Times. I enjoyed a lot of it, but I couldn't quite figure out. The show was a mixture of different styles of humor, and I couldn't quite figure out whether it was a satisfactory mixture or not. Then I tried doing it back here in a few college campuses, very friendly audiences, as a sort of solo show, and found I didn't like that. I love working with teams. And when I go on for a monologue, I'm the one who's thinking, oh, another 7 minutes and I'll be done. You know? It doesn't particularly interest me going out and doing a monologue. And I like the interplay. There was a particular closer when there were several people in the show that involved firing cats out of cannons, which is one of the most enjoyable things I've ever done in my life. And I don't want to go on stage anymore unless I'm going to enjoy it. So I have a feeling that might be the direction to take it. But I don't want to do that for a long time. I've got several things I want to write first.
And when you write, do you put aside specific time? Are you better in the morning, better in the afternoon?
I think if I can get started, and I'm one of those people who kind of feels I've got to call everyone back, answer every email.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
So you have to clear your desk.
I have to clear my desk, but then I can do about an hour and a half, have a coffee, second coffee, then do about an hour and a bit, and then have lunch, put my feet up, have a bit of a snooze or read for a bit, and then I can do about another hour. And I think after that, that's the best of the day. You can keep going after that, but if you do, I notice how tense I am. It's like a towel, damp towel that you squeeze like that. It takes me a long time to unwind.
Do you prefer to write with other people?
Yes, I love writing with other people.
And do you presumably write aloud then?
Yes, absolutely. And I always think that you get somewhere that you would never get on your own. even if it's by accident. You know, because there's another mind in there throwing things in you wouldn't have thought of. So I think almost everything that I've really enjoyed writing has been cooperatively. Usually just one other person. If there's two in the room with you, it's much harder, and if there's three, it's hopeless, because one of the four, you agree, right?
Yes,
one of
I
the
do.
four will always say, I don't like that. So two is great. You're always trying to create something that will make enough people laugh. Now, don't ask me what I mean by enough. I never expected everybody to laugh. You always want that, but it's simply impossible. I've never done anything that everyone thought was funny. It's much more sort of, you know, some people like this, some people like that. And what's more, there's a lot of disagreement. People always think that what they think is funny is what was funny, and it isn't.
I once was in a sketch show with Sheila Hancock, and she told me about a sketch she had done with Beryl Reid that was hilarious. And she said, we must do this sketch. We had the right group of people there, and I kept thinking, I don't get this. This is embarrassing to me. And I asked if I could be excused boots from that sketch, which took a lot of courage to ask. And I was aware that that would have an effect. Well, it brought the house down every night, John. And I stood from the side of the stage and watched it happen. I still don't know what it was. I
felt like that
people...
about the City Walks. I never thought it was a particularly good piece of material. I mean, first of all, it was written by Jones and Palin, who are not as good as Chapman and I. The audience was making so much noise, it didn't matter what I said. And I used to say to Michael, as I went round with my legs doing all this, I used to say to him, this is not a good piece of writing, Michael, as you perfectly well know, and it only gets such a great reception because of the prehensibility of my limbs. And I never particularly liked it. So it's very strange when you do a piece that people think is hilarious and you just kind of...
It's confusing. I think it's confusing.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why do you think we love people who make us laugh so much?
Well, because it's so wonderful to laugh. It's glorious. It's the best, the happiest moments of my life, probably sitting in the National Theatre in London, watching French farces done with great, great abandon, discipline. It's still my favorite form because you don't have to be completely plausible. And what Laurence Olivier said about film, he said it's always going to be so bloody plausible. And it's wonderful to get on the stage sometimes and just to let it take off and go just a bit crazier than it ought, because there's a joy in that energy.
Yes.
When it gets, yeah.
And I think about the love that I've had for Eric Morecambe and for Tommy Cooper and for you. And part of it is because it's been a shared experience with my family.
Yeah.
So we've all bonded together. I'm not sure that happens anymore because we don't have TV that the whole family watches together so much. But it's a very personal thing. I slightly think I own that. I'm a bit annoyed other people know about Fawlty Towers. I'm a bit annoyed about that. This belongs to me.
When I'm watching things, there's this. But I tell you what it is. It's wonderful if you discover something at the start, before the awful publicity machine has swung into. You know, for example, when I did the first series of Fawlty Towers, I turned down the front cover of the Radio Times. And we said, what? What? Nobody's ever done that before. I said, yeah, I wanted to creep in. You see. But once you come under the full glare of the spotlight, and once you've done one or two things that are very, very good, then the bar goes up, the expectation goes, to the point, I think, sometimes when there's no way that you can match the expectation. And that's a problem now for young people because they get famous too soon and they don't have enough time to make mistakes. I mean, going through a quiet, obscure phase of your career where you can do lots of really bad things and discover, oops, don't do that again.
Yes.
That's really valuable. We were so lucky. I would say, you know, the day we walked into Michael Mills' office, bless him, he's up there now, but, you know, he was wonderful. And we went in and did the worst presentation that's ever been done about why we should be given a television series. We didn't. He asked us a whole lots of questions about will there be music, will there be guest stars, will there be film? We said, yes, maybe. You know, I mean, I thought we should have rehearsed or something. And then he says, "Oh, go and make 13 programs."
Is it a proper job, being a comedian?
Oh, it's bloody hard work. It's very hard work, and it can get very. It gets you pretty nervous sometimes. I think Nicky Henson, my great buddy who was in one of the Fawlty towers. I think he told me recently that somebody had done some measurements and had found that the adrenaline that was running in actors' veins before a first night in London was 4 times what you get in a car crash.
Oh, God.
So I think people don't understand quite how scared we get when we first go out there and do something new. But of course, after you've done it a few times, you kind of think, yes, okay, I'm safe now. Then you start to relax.
Do you think that we believe that we're quite fraudulent comedians?
I think when I started, I found it much harder to justify being funny to myself. And then, just as a matter of sheer experience and talking to hundreds, thousands of people who've seen the stuff that I've been associated with, you realize that they really do feel the better for it. It's done sort of good. And when you see these awful, pompous politicians like Norman Lamont, you know, what a twerp, you know, inflated, almost beyond conception, thinking what a deeply important person he is. I would say, no, you know, give me Eric Morecambe any time.
Do you think it's an important job?
Yes, I think it's terribly important.
Why, John?
Because I don't think at this moment in history there's all that much optimism and happiness in the world, and I think every time somebody laughs a bit, it's a slightly, momentarily, the world is a better place. I think it's immensely important.
Do people thank you for making them
Yes,
laugh?
they do. And I find that very touching. And particularly, the most touching thing is when people say that they watched it with a parent and they both laughed together. Very frequently in America, people indicate that it was really the only very close contact they had with their dads. But that was tremendously important for their relationship with their dad. And that's great. I mean, that's wonderful.
Did you use humour to discipline your kids?
Yes. Yes.
Did it help?
I did all sorts of strange, paradoxical things to my kids. Like when they were sulked, I used to say to them, I think it would be a really good idea if you went on sulking for a bit. I said, but when you've sulked and feel you've sulked enough, come in the next room and we'll have a game. So I said, but right now I think you need to sulk. It was
Impossible to continue sulking.
And I'd peep in a little bit later and they'd be watching the television and they'd say, see me watching, go and sulk. I used to like that kind of thing. And I used to discipline my kids by saying if they didn't behave, I would sing to them.
So, do you mind about the approval of your peers?
I'm not very bothered by what other people say. That when it comes from someone that I really think can do it, that's what you learn. The greatest compliment I was ever paid, it touched me very deeply, as I met Charlie Chaplin's widow. And she told me that after Charlie died, she used to watch Fawlty Towers to cheer herself up. And I thought, to cheer up Charlie's widow.
Yeah.
I'll put that on my tombstone.
Ah, come di orchestra illusa Napoli, e poi sgridatami Neapoli, comedy d'un jour. Ta-da-da-dam, ta-da-da-dam, ta-da-da-da-da-da-da.